Good. Then please allow me to introduce Professor Hila Lifshitz Assaf from NYU Stern School of Business. Hila is also a faculty associate at the Laboratory for Innovation and Science at Harvard University. Hila, I still remember when I heard a presentation of your amazing work about how NASA experimented with open innovation science many years ago at a conference. The paper on that was later published in ASQ, and it's still one of my favorite papers in the world. Hila builds on her award-winning research on the micro foundations of scientific innovation and knowledge creation processes in the digital age. And today she will talk about openness and collaboration in science, from NASA to crowds and artificial intelligence. I've talked with Hila. You're totally welcome to put comments and questions into the chat or raise your hand. She's trying to attend to that, and I will be moderating the chat so that we make sure that we can address your questions as good as possible, both during Hila's talk, but also afterwards in the Q&A session. Hila, thank you so much for being with us today. It's a great pleasure. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Marian. I'm so excited and honored to kickstart this wonderful conference and community and to engage with you all. So as I told Marian, feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, ask questions. If we see that there is a need for me to speak, Marian will let me know. I feel the challenge is actually to have an engaging conversation, not so much to disrupt me. So don't think about it. And if you have any question, feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, put something in the chat. I would love to hear your thoughts and ideas. I will share with you kind of a research journey. So I will start with my NASA study briefly, just so you know where I'm coming to and at the questions that I'm asking today. And I will open with something brand new that I'm working on and would love your ideas and thoughts and discussions, and we can continue to think about it and to think how to engage around it. So openness and collaboration in scientific research from NASA to crowds and AI. And this is my email and Twitter thing if you want to, so we can connect later. So over the years, I've been fascinated with this research question. It's a high-level research question, but I want to start there because that's the high-level thinking that I would love to develop in the intellectual kind of exchange and discussion later. So if you think about it historically even, right? We start with the 15th century. This is a sketch of Leonardo da Vinci, first sketch of the airplane. The lone inventors, we learned that they were not as lonely as we thought, but they were connected to their local communities. And then the Industrial Revolution hits and we have the birth of the lab. This is the image of Thomas Edison, one of the most and first labs. And ever since basically for 200, some will claim 300 years, R&D was organized in labs, in organization, and then in the 19th century, most of the discussion in academia, in the business world, was around how to create collaborative networks across academia and businesses, across businesses, collaboration, networks, alliances, but they were still bounded within these big organizations. And then we had the web, the internet revolution that started. And ever since we've been talking about this open innovation process that anyone can innovate. We don't necessarily need to be part of an organization or necessarily need to be an expert or Leonardo da Vinci. Anyone can innovate from anywhere. And this is what the web is enabling us. And I'm putting a question mark there because I still think it's something we are still discovering in this community and in others. It's still not kind of proven that this is the dogma, this is the paradigm of today. But what I would like us to go even further today is to ask what and whether is coming up next. Is there a new way to organize for innovation, augmented, scaled innovation process with the increase of AI? So that's the journey I will take us kind of through today in this talk. And we'll try to think of new ways and how to organize R&D experts, crowds, and AI. So I'll start with R&D experts and crowds quickly to get you a sense of how I move from these broad research questions to specific research projects. So the two research questions that I usually focus on is how are these new ways of organizing impacting professionals and their work? So at NASA, scientists and engineers, we will look also at experts in IRI today. Other studies that I have are radiologists and AI, how it's changing their work, software programmers, GitHub, working on open source and at your job in the same time. And then the other question, which will be the main focus of today's talk, is how does it impact the innovation process? How is it different and why does it work? When does it fail? Other studies that I have are on accelerating the innovation, and it's really in the sense and in the spirit of this crisis that we are all experiencing. So if anyone is interested after this talk, I'm also really curious if you've seen or observed anything that had to do with accelerating innovation and making it faster this year, medical device, vaccine, hackathons, etc. But today I'll just focus on initially a little bit on the study of NASA, and I'll take us to this new study that I've done with the Industrial Research Institute with few companies. And as I said at the end, new studies on AI. So this study has been published if you want to read more. So forgive me if I run over kind of 3 years in 3 minutes, but probably 10 or 5. So this was a longitudinal in-depth field study that I conducted before and throughout and after NASA's experiment with open innovation. What I mean by that, and this is a small photo of me and all the cool science that was done around me, and this is, I think, relevant to many of the topics that we will be discussing in the papers, kind of how these different labs try to change. So I immerse myself in their world, and these are the organizational design and the different labs. And these blue cycles, these blue balls, are those challenges that each of these labs had for that year. This experiment was interesting because bravely, they took their strategic plan, their strategic R&D challenges for that year. And they said, for 1 year, we'll try to internally in their organization design, NASA, best world experts on this field with their collaborators and contractors. So that's, if you remember the historical lens, right? The 19th century way of working, which most organizations still do, contracts, SBIR, grants, collaboration. And we'll also try this new paradigm, this fully open crowdsourcing, innocentive, yet to come, top quarter, that I would say the most well-known platforms that were back then, but still are. So they didn't try to even choose very specifically. They just thought, what are the leading crowdsourcing platforms? Let's post the same problems we are trying to solve internally and externally. Of course, because it's NASA, they got amazing response. Those of us who've been studying crowdsourcing now are not surprised. It was surprising to them. And also to me initially. Over 3,000 solvers from 80 countries participated from a wide range of professions. The important surprise was the level and the quality of their solutions. So out of these 14 challenges that I remind you are hardcore R&D challenges that these experts have been working on average for 5 to 9 years, 3 of them were solved. Around 6 were partially solved, which was amazing. Especially one of them became known as the home run solution for predicting solar flares. So if COVID is not enough, this is just an image from December. What is also we are experiencing in this year, the beginning of another kind of solar minimum, that we have solar storms that are dangerous for us and for everything kind of out there. In 3 months, this is a well-known heliophysics problem. I won't go too much into it, but in 3 months, this guy, if you can see him, this is an image that he asked and he gave me the permission to share. This is Bruce Cragen, a semi-retired radio engineer, was able to solve this $800 million a year heliophysics problem. This has taken the field by surprise. The head of radiology was, this is a quote of him, this is kind of so fast, you caught everyone off guard. Turnaround time for a solution like this could take years. So what happened next? Of course, when we're thinking about open science, and we have here people from CERN, and I'm sure this is also interesting for people that are thinking about public policy. So the White House Office of Science and Technology, NASA management, all got thrilled, right? This is working, this is fast, this is cheaper, and this is engaging and inclusive and open. But when you bring it back to the labs, back to the scientists and engineers that are supposed to implement it, then the storm really begins. So in the paper, I go deeply into it, but just to give you a taste of what happened, it brought up a lot of tensions, fragmentations within groups, within labs, strong reaction from the scientists and engineers, a lot of resistance. People come here to innovate. It's a slap on the face when I see opportunity like this. What value am I? This is an anathema to the way we were trained and modeled to do. The history of the scientific method goes against it. It's like cheating. Every time I have a problem, I put it on crowdsourcing. So why did I do all these PhDs? Why did I travel half the world to work at NASA? On the other hand, there were scientists and engineers in the same labs arguing with each other and saying, but wait a minute. At the end of the day, it's about the big agenda. Forget about the personal one. Science is about finding the truth. These guys solved it. We want to get to Mars. So who cares how? So these people that kind of started talking differently went through a transformation, which I called identity refocusing work, because the discussion became not about knowledge work as much. It became much more about who they are and how they define themselves. And they talked about moving from being the problem solvers to solution seeker. So in the paper, I kind of document how it took 3 years to really change. And those that really remained and protected their identity as problem solver solvers kept on putting kind of boundaries and did not adopt those beautiful and wonderful, innovative solutions. But those that transformed and went to rethinking themselves, some of them left the lab because they decided this is not the right way to even organize science anymore, have started orchestrating R&D externally. They've really dismantled the knowledge boundaries and changed the way they're doing R&D. And some of them even describe it as a shift from thinking my lab is my world to all of a sudden the whole world is my lab. And what I want us to take from today to here is this difference that there were 43% of the scientists and engineers that I studied that embraced this new way and changed and transformed the way they did work. 33% did not. And these were strong, talented scientists and engineers. So it wasn't that everyone now shifted to open. It was still contested, and it still is at NASA. So from my perspective, from the research questions that I shared with you, what is the impact on professionals and work? I felt, okay, I got it. This is deep. It requires this identity transformation and this knowledge work boundary shift. But what does it mean for the innovation process? I was puzzled with, and this is what I want to share with you today that led me to the new study that I will share. So on one hand, I felt, okay, crowd-based innovation can work faster and with low resources, $3,000 to solve an $800 million a year, and this in 3 months versus 9 years. But experts will need to go through a significant transformation, and it's also an institutional change that needs to happen. At NASA and other organizations have been talking about the incentive designs that and many will reject it. It's 33% and many more over the years, I can tell you, have rejected. And it's ever since I've been teaching it, and I'm sure most of you that have studied crowdsourcing have seen that there is a lot of rejection out there. So it kept me puzzled about it. And then one day when I presented this at an NSF conference, Robert Kraut, who's a human-computer interaction scholar, very famous and senior, told me, okay, you're saying it, and raised his hand. He didn't wait for the break to, to shame me in person, but he raised his hand and said, okay, but what are you going to do about it? Like, are you just like all of you social scientists just studying postmortem? Do something about it. And I was like, what do you mean? That's how I was trained as a social scientist, to go into an organization, to do ethnography, to look and to document and share. I published. And he said, no, let's do something about it. So talking about, experimenting with ourselves and pushing our own disciplinary boundaries. So this has led to a collaboration with human-computer interaction folks and with computer scientists that we sat together, and for 2-3 years, we started rethinking how to redesign the innovation process. Maybe we need to think about crowdsourcing and expert differently, and later also about AI. We have one paper only still published about it because it's very new work at PNAS, a short paper that is just capturing the direction that we are thinking, and I will share with you some of the studies. So just high level to give you a taste, what are we thinking? We are thinking that we can think of these different actors and how they can contribute to each other. So in the paper, we talk about these different theoretical dimensions. We think that R&D experts can bring a lot of knowledge and in-depth knowledge and complexity, but the crowd can help with fixation. And that's the study that I will share with you. And AI, maybe scalability, will open it in the end. So what is this new experiment and study that we've done? I collaborated with the Industrial Research Institute, which I warmly recommend anyone to try to connect with. They give awards for researchers who want to research R&D. And basically they let me join. They have all the big kind of R&D organizations in the US, but also many of them are global companies. And they let me sit and join their workshops and talk to all the R&D leaders and heads of R&D organizations and ask them about the innovation process and how can we think about it. To be honest, the answers were not that inspiring. After a year of joining a lot of their meeting and interviewing a lot of R&D professionals, most of them told me what I've seen at NASA and in many of the executive education programs, that there isn't anything new under the sun. They're still not doing fully open, and they're still doing this collaborative network innovation, and they feel that there is a problem of kind of incremental innovation. They're not getting to this radical innovation that they wanted because they're all thinking in the same way. And they talk to me about something that they call in the field solutionism. I don't know if you've heard about that. But I asked them, what does it mean? They said, we have this pressure to solve the problem very fast based on what we have kind of most available, maybe our memory, our expertise, the corporation memory. But it leads to that, what we call, I think, academically kind of nearby search, close search, right? They don't search far. They don't do this radical innovation. They just need to find a solution fast for all the problem. So they don't have the time, the ability to really think outside the way they want it, outside of the box. And they said, maybe it's okay for like small problems, but what happens when we need to work on complex problems. We need some transformation. We need a different process. I asked them, what about crowdsourcing? What about this? He said, culture kills all of this. It doesn't work. Most of them, it's not the whole world of part, but most of them, that's what they said. I said, so what does work? What do you feel works? And he said, to be honest, all these enterprise tools are not working. What works is what we have at home. These are things that work. I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't work. So we went back as a team and started saying, okay, they definitely are frustrated, but they want something that works in the same way that their application. Then they talk to us in length about how their kids do all these things so much faster that they can do, how they search things so much faster that what their enterprise systems are enabling them to do. And we said, maybe we can design something that will feel like a mobile application for professionals to help them in their innovative problem-solving process. So how can we design a new distributed innovation process that is aimed at breaking that fixation that they're talking about, that has been documented in the literature? So our hypothesis was that maybe if professionals will have something that can be augmented by crowds or AI, a mobile app, something that can help them throughout their own problem solving, not taking it outside to crowds or AI or anyone else to solve. They're still the problem solvers. Maybe it can help them do a different solution space exploration, go more distant, think differently, be more creative, and kind of break a little bit that fixation. So that's the study that we designed. And because these are human-computer interaction folks, they know how to design stuff. So they designed something in the spirit of kind of a Tinder app that you can actually get inspirations. They designed what they called analogical inspiration search engine, that basically our experts received analogies, and I'll share with you soon how it looks, from crowds or AI. In this study, crowds, and now we're looking into AI. That they could swipe and choose whether they think this is helpful for the specific problem they're solving. And we thought maybe that could help them think differently about the specific problem. So a very, I would say, a specific, not a huge shift. We let experts sit alone, think the way they're used to. We gathered them in a conference, in a workshop. We got real problems. We tested it with few organizations that you can see here, Bosch, Hershey's, with IRI. And the crowd that we took was Amazon Mechanical Turks. We wanted kind of something that can work fast and easy and not in the same way that will threaten them. We took a real world problem for all of the experts, the same real world problem from one of these companies, as you can imagine which one. This was a problem of how we can have water efficient laundry design. So the problem was framed this way, and it is the way the company gave us the problem definition. I'm sure this will make us all think that Americans are such a wasteful population, because you have here terrible statistics on how much water goes into laundry. But it's not only in the US. We know that this is a well-known problem, that water is being wasted in laundry. So the end of it was, how would you get clothes cleaned up without putting them through the wash? I'll share with you the experiment, and then I would love if anyone has any questions. So we did different conditions. The baseline was the way experts work alone. So we gathered 40 something in the end, fully finished the experiment, 40 different experts from these different R&D organizations that have seen this problem now for the first time, not from those that have been solving it. And we let them solve it for an hour alone to give us a potential solution that the company will then consider and evaluate, and experts, etc. The second condition was this augmented process. So we brought some inspirations from the crowd, this analogical inspiration engine, and they could see them. So you can see here example of UV light that now has been used also to sterilize rooms. So some of the crowds brought this as an interesting inspiration. Maybe think about UV light, not water at all. Others said, think about stainless clothes. You don't even need to get the wash, because your clothes will never be dirty. You'll just, put them in the air and that's it. So this is the second condition. Experts got some kind of inspiration for 10 minutes only. The other, by the way, experts that work alone had 10 minutes to search online and anything that is public. And the third one was that we said, maybe we'll do the same augmented, but we'll tell the crowd a more abstracted level of the problem, since I have research and others on problem formulation that is very important to how you think and how you define the problems. So we gave them a more abstracted definition of the problem, because we wanted also the crowd not to get fixated. So we asked them, what are different ways to prevent particles from sticking to object surfaces, and other questions that are more abstracted. So these are the three conditions. To give you a sense of how it looked, what the crowd brought, for 10 minutes, as I said, they brought a graphic, an image, and some explanation and a link if the expert wanted to go further and to test. So you can see on the left-hand side, These are some of the inspirations that were brought by Amazon Turkers when they had their original problem, and on the right-hand side, those that had the schema, the abstracted problem. So you can see all these different ones are very easy to swipe and go quickly over. Then what we did, we mapped the solution space of all the experts. We had 105 ideas from 40 solutions because the solutions were complex. We did a la Herbert Simon that was translated to creativity literature, kind of a solution tree mapping exercise. I'm happy to talk more if anyone is interested about it. It's a unique method that I think is interesting because it helps us to really understand search and kind of space exploration. And we saw how basically each of these inspiration and each of these experts led to the different solutions to be explored. So we got a sense of this is the whole space of solutions that were explored. Did our intervention work? Any questions up to here before I share the results about our intervention, about the design?
Hila, I have a quick question. Could you clarify?
Yes.
How the crowds were brought into that experiment? Was it an online process? Was it pre-selected people? Who was the crowd? How were they brought into that? Was it live?
It was Amazon Turkers that we did it asynchronously because our time of the experts was so expensive, but we tried it also synchronously after in the second experiment. So basically we asked Amazon Turkers, we gave them the problem, and they brought these inspirations, and we then fed them into the experts because the time of the experts was so expensive. And this is if some of you are doing field experiment, I'm sure that's the thing that I experienced, the stress that it's now or never, you're capturing the data now or never. So basically that's how we did it with the crowd. And my co-authors, Nikki Couture and Robert Kraut, are like the experts of Amazon Turker studies. So for them, that was like nothing to do. It was much more like how to work with experts on it. Any other clarification questions on the design of it or on the thinking behind it? Okay, so let me share with you the results. So we were looking to see how does it impact the solution space. So I'm just sharing with you high-level results here due to time constraints. And this paper is in the revision process. So if anyone has any comments or questions, I would love to hear. So basically what we've seen that augmenting R&D experts did yield a significant shift in how they explored the solution space, in what type of solutions they brought. So you can see the fixation very clearly in the solo condition, right? The number one was solo. Experts are working alone in the way that usually they're working today. That's still the dominant paradigm. 71% of their solutions were around cleaning without a washing machine. If you recall, that was the end of the problem statement that we received from the company. So the text really matters, right? Problem formulation really matters. So most of them went through and brought a lot of interesting solutions, but in that space. Once they got augmented and got some inspirations from the crowd, we can see a shift. We can see some softening, some opening of that cognitive fixation. So you can see 45% are already thinking about, actually, you can still use the washing machine, but differently. And when we did the abstraction, so 32% actually brought solutions that do not even need cleaning, like the ones that you saw that you change the fabric, you put nanoparticles in the fabric that people are wearing. So no need even to clean clothes. So that's kind of, I would say, more the distant search versus immediate and proximate. So in the paper, we also, of course, show all the different tests we did to this, but this is just to give you a taste of how a shift can happen from only an intervention of 10 minutes of opening kind of the minds, but remember they were not threatened. So unlike the NASA study that someone else is taking your problem, someone else is solving it for you. They were solving it. They built the full solution. We saw what they took from the inspiration. It was just the beginning of that inspiration, but they developed fully with their in-depth knowledge, a beautiful, many times beautiful solution. And then we did another study that I just wanted to kind of quickly share with you, because some of the team members in our kind of cross-disciplinary research group are very like crowds will rule the world, no one needs expert type of researchers. So we had a debate, and then they said, you know, we need to do another study. Like a few months later, they said, we need to replace experts with crowds completely and check the novelty and the usefulness of their solutions. Let's just try it out. I was open to it. I actually was not sure what will happen. According to the literature, I thought that probably the crowd will bring a more novel solution, but less useful. So I'm curious to hear if anyone has here any guesses on what the second study. So basically we did the same augmented, but now either the crowd is augmented or the experts are augmented. And we compared the novelty and the usefulness of the results. Any guesses who had more novel or more useful results? Because this is a problem that we can think of it, right? It's our home laundry. So also Amazon Turkers can relate to it. We took a problem that is kind of user-based knowledge. Any guesses, and who do you think did better? Experts, crowd, or novelty, usefulness, both? I see some smiles. People are afraid to maybe think that maybe experts, all these years, all the PhD, all the hard work, is it worth it? So, Marion, give a guess.
Yeah, both. Like having done some research on that myself, I would say everyone is affected by functional fixedness. So that would be my guess. Yeah.
So you think both would be, tell me like, what do you think of novelty and what do you think of usefulness? I'm curious.
I would say that the crowd probably is better on the novelty, on the usefulness issue versus the novelty issue. That would be my guess.
Okay.
With our research. So let's see.
Let's see. Any other guesses?
There are a couple of other guesses in the chat.
So tell me, because I don't see, let me see if I can see the chat while I'm
it out. So
I'm with Marion. I see Chiara. Oh, thank you, Chiara. I'm a big fan of your work. Yes, let's see.
Crowd is better. Sally
says,
says,
Chris, you're killing us. Less crazy than experts. Okay. Okay. So he thinks like basically Chris Tucci is saying that the crowd was more useful and less crazy than augmented experts. Experts still do both in both dimensions. Alex Russer, Henry, need to add feasibility and usefulness. We can have a whole long discussion, but assume it's the same because we tested initially all three and then we collapsed because we realized they're the same. So what do you think, Henry? If feasibility and usefulness, what do you think? Feasibility, usefulness, novelty.
Then the experts probably win on the usefulness because they just know what technical constraints are. But in terms of novelty and creativeness, that's probably the crowd, I would think. Okay.
Should I reveal? Claudia say experts still did best in the usefulness, but the crowd did best on novelty. So I'm, in going into this, my hypothesis was actually very similar to Claudia and Henry, I have to say. But Alex, I think from the guesses here, was the one who's right. Let me see if I can move a little bit aside the chat and show you. So novelty and usefulness, the experts did better on both. So I think we need to bear in mind that this was Amazon Turkers. So if I would put it on Innocentive, I think we would have had different solutions. That's kind of my now argument with my colleagues who think, when we were talking about this, but we did Amazon Turkers. I think even though we could have thought about novelty, and we did some even comparison of the solutions, the level of both novelty and the richness and the development that the expert brought to the solutions were just uncomparable. So I would say one thing to take away is not to give up on experts so fast, but to think maybe how we can augment each other and build on each other. And we should try more of these. This is just one experiment we did on one specific problem with one type of crowds. That doesn't mean like that is the way it will be. I just think it was interesting to try to break and redistribute the process instead of just giving the crowd to fully solve it versus the experts to fully solve it, but to mix them in different and new ways that have to do with the way problems are formulated and solved, etc. It did show that we can do something about this cognitive fixation, about this solutionism, about search that we document in the literature. I think there is something to do about it. And it does show the advantages of the in-depth complexity understanding of experts. So with that being said, how are we doing, Marion, on time? I'm moving to AI, and we'll open it quickly, a few minutes on AI just to introduce, and then I'm opening it to discussion, okay?
That's super fine. You have at least 10 minutes more to go to still have a 15 minutes discussion.
Okay, so I think, because Marina and I were discussing how much time, so I will open the discussion, and then if we want more, I'll present more. But I want us to first try to think about some of these together. So after we thought about the R&D experts and the crowd, as I said, few computer scientists, especially one of them, Daphna Shachaf from Hebrew University, joined our cross-disciplinary collaboration. And she said, what about AI? You guys are playing with crowds and experts. AI can do so much better on a lot of these things. So to share with you, because some of you here also know me, I am, a field researcher. This is how I was trained. Even going and doing this field experiment was kind of a stretch. But to look at this discussion, initially, I thought maybe I should study these computer scientists that think that AI can be creative. Because to me, that was like somewhere between bizarre to outrageous, to almost think like, why do we need computers to do that? Like, why, like, creativity is so beautiful. That's the magic that I've been always attracted to. Innovation is so beautiful. Why do we even need to think about AI for that? After a few years, I went native, I guess, of working with them. And I've started thinking differently about it. But that's what I wanted to share with you and to discuss openly, because this is a new study that we are still designing. So that's I would say, the open question that I would like to pose and discuss together is what, if any, because maybe some of you think this is not right or morally or differently should not be even an option. What, if any, could be the role of AI in the open and distributed collaborative innovation process? So I'll share with you some options that we discussed over the years. So in the beginning, as I said, there was the question of, do we even want AI for creativity and innovation? Unfortunately, we can ask that, but AI and computer scientists are trying. They're throwing darts at anything right now with AI. But I think that's still a legitimate question to ask, because there is a policy. I can tell you that I have a PhD student studying, Kevin Lee, studying music and AI. And that is a big question that many of the musicians and many of the companies also, the startup was not having an easy time telling people, to buy music from AI. So that is still, I think, a very relevant and timely question to ask. And creativity and innovation is different. So I think music, art is different than innovation. So this crisis made us think also of, can it help where we need it, right? So we've seen drug development for AI going and increasing the investment in it like crazy this year, and the experimentation in it. We've seen medical device with AI's help and kind of analytics pouring into the medical device, for instance, in ventilators, etc., trying to help it, but not necessarily always in the development. So maybe there are problems that we should define that are so important, and we are lacking our expertise, and our institutions are not doing enough. Then we should push for AI there. But then the question is kind of in which way. So I'll share with you a few thoughts, and if you want, I also have a few slides. The direction that the collaborator that I'm working with, as I said, Daphne Shachaf, she's an expert in natural language processing, and she has been claiming and doing research kind of showing how and working on how AI can have humor and creativity. These are the two things that she's an expert on. And the few of us with a PhD student are now designing a new study based on patents database. So I wanted to open it and share with you, how would you think about such a study? Do you even think it's interesting? But if you want more details also on the study, I'm happy to share a little bit, but it goes into kind of text and problem formulation more in depth. So how about we pause here, Mariam, to open the discussion? If we have time to be more concrete, I'm also happy to do this. As I said, I put some slide in the end because I felt half an hour. I need to respect the time as much as I can, but we'll see if we need. I have kind of more gifts, more candy in the back store.